It was the fall of 1990 in Novichokossk, a city in the Soviet Union. A young boy wandered into the woods to play, but he never returned. When police arrived, they found something so gruesome it barely seemed human. A body mutilated beyond recognition. Flesh carved away, eyes gouged out. A scene so violent, detectives described it as a slaughterhouse in the forest. This was not the work of an animal. This was the signature of one of the most sadistic serial killers the world has ever known. His name was Andrei Chikatilo. To history, he would be known as the Butcher of Rostov. Andrei Chikatilo was born in 1936 in a small Ukrainian village under Stalin's rule. His childhood was scarred by famine, violence, and fear. His mother often told him terrifying stories that his older brother had been kidnapped and eaten by starving neighbors during the famine. Whether true or not, the image of cannibalism haunted young Andrei. Bullied at school, humiliated for his shyness and impotence, he grew up lonely and resentful. Teachers described him as quiet, unremarkable, but inside he seethed with rage. As he became a man, his failures mounted. He struggled with relationships, and his sexual dysfunction left him feeling powerless. But in that powerlessness, a dark obsession grew. He discovered that violence gave him arousal. By the 1970s, Chikatilo had a wife and 2 children, but his secret cravings only deepened. He lived a double life, a factory worker, a family man, and a predator lurking in the shadows. It was 1978 when Chikatilo made his first move. He lured 9-year-old Lena Zakitnova into an abandoned house, promising her candy. What followed was a frenzy of violence. He stabbed her repeatedly, his rage uncontrollable. The act aroused him, a discovery that would shape the rest of his life. Lena's body was found in a river, mutilated. Andrei was briefly suspected, but another man was convicted and executed for the crime. Chikatilo had slipped through the cracks, and he knew it. That false conviction emboldened him. He realized he could kill again. Throughout the 1980s, Andrei Chikatilo prowled train stations, bus stops, and playgrounds. His method was always the same. He targeted the vulnerable. Children, teenagers, young women. He promised them food, money, or simply a safe ride home. Instead, he led them into the woods. There, the nightmare began. He tied them up, beat them, and stabbed them, sometimes dozens of times. He mutilated their bodies, often gouging out their eyes. To him, the eyes were windows to the soul, and removing them erased his victim's ability to haunt him. The brutality was staggering. Some victims were found with body parts missing, others with deep knife wounds carved into their flesh. Many were sexually assaulted, not just for his twisted pleasure, but because violence was the only way he could achieve satisfaction. By the mid-1980s, the forests around Rostov became dumping grounds of horror. Entire communities lived in fear. Parents forbade children from walking alone. Travelers avoided train stations at night. And yet, the killer remained invisible. The Soviet Union, bound by secrecy and denial, refused to admit that a serial killer could exist within its borders. Authorities downplayed the murders, blaming them on gangs, drunks, or foreign influence. But the bodies kept piling up. In 1984, police launched Operation Forest Path, one of the largest manhunts in Soviet history. Tens of thousands of people were questioned. Innocent men were arrested, interrogated, and some even executed for crimes Chikatilo committed. All the while, the real killer kept hunting. It wasn't until November 1990 that Chikatilo slipped. A police officer noticed him acting suspiciously at a train station, following children, watching them too closely. They brought him in for questioning, but without evidence, they had to release him. Still, investigators were closing in. They matched his movements to multiple murder sites. They found witnesses who recalled the strange, bespectacled man with a quiet, unsettling demeanor. Finally, in November 1990, undercover officers caught him leaving the woods near the site of another child's disappearance. When they searched his bag, they found knives, rope, and a jar of Vaseline. This time, there was no escape. At first, Chikatilo denied everything. But after days of relentless questioning, the dam broke. He confessed to 56 murders. In chilling detail, he described how he lured, tortured, and killed his victims. He smiled as he explained his methods. He relived the pleasure he felt. The most disturbing part? His voice never trembled. There was no guilt, no remorse, only pride in his work. In 1992, Chikatilo stood trial. The courtroom was packed with victims' families, journalists, and horrified onlookers. He sat inside a steel cage, caged like the animal he was, as his crimes were read aloud. Parents screamed, fainted, some even tried to attack him. At times, Chikatilo would rant, shouting about voices in his head. At other times, he sat calmly, smirking at the crowd. The court heard testimony about children butchered, women stabbed beyond recognition, and countless families destroyed. The jury needed little time. Andrei Chikatilo was sentenced to death. On February 14, 1994, Valentine's Day, Chikatilo was led into a soundproof room in a Russian prison. He begged for mercy, claiming he was mentally ill. The guards ignored him. Moments later, he was executed with a single gunshot to the head. Just like that, the Butcher of Rostov was gone. But the wounds he left behind never healed. 52 confirmed victims, with whispers of many more. Families still searching for closure. Children who never came home. And the most terrifying part? For years, Chikatilo walked among them. A school teacher, a husband, a father, a man you might pass on the street without a second thought. The lesson is as chilling as the crimes. The most terrifying monsters are the ones who look like us.